But if you want to get to the next level of your life, you're going to have to, at least to some extent, give up the old person's, places, things, and ideas. And I promise you, on the other end of that trade-off, you will be proud of yourself for doing it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode, number 614, where we got my perspective on what it takes to get to the next level. Today, for episode number 615, we are going to do Alan's perspective on what it takes to get to the next level.
Interesting.
You have anything to say before we start?
My intention for this is to try to explain what I've become aware of, that I believe. I'm going to say what I believe the listeners need to hear, and I'm going to try to explain it in a way that's easily understood.
Okay.
That's it. That's my intention.
That's what we're going with? Okay.
Yeah.
What's my intention? All right, my intention's done. One thing that I know you've been dealing with a lot and trying to work through is expressing your truth and being more of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to somebody out there right now who, for most of their life, has been told to figuratively sit down and shut up and be quiet and don't make waves, that kind of thing? Like, what do you say to somebody who is afraid to lean into their unique version, their unique awesomeness of themselves?
So there are many ways I can go with this, but I think it's a fundamental understanding that every single one of us has a reputation, and every single one of us is being judged in some regard by everyone in our life. So, for example, and that's both positive and negative. So, if you're gonna be judged, and everyone has an opinion, I can give a speech to 1,000 people, and out of all of those 1,000 people, that's 1,000 different opinions. That's 1,000 different perspectives on whether or not my speech was good, whether or not I was attractive, whether or not I had good tonality, whether or not I'm sincere, whether or not I'm a strong speaker. And that's just the reality of the world that we live in. And everyone right now can think about a jock in high school and name their name. So for us, John Skurzet's who I think of. Okay? R.I.P.
R.I.P.
And so you just have to have a fundamental understanding that human beings put people in boxes as a biological defense mechanism. And if you're going to be put in a box by everyone you meet from now on, forever, you're going to be criticized and you're going to be judged regardless. So you might as well be judged for who you want to be.
How do you turn the judgment? Okay, I won't even say that. What do you turn the judgment into? Because I know a lot of people turn the judgment into whatever it is, lack of belief, insecurity. What happens when you get judgment, and what do you reuse that judgment as?
So I think what's interesting is in high school, it's even before high school. As kids, all we want to do is fit in. And again, this is from an evolutionary standpoint. Like you want to be a part of a tribe. Everybody wants to fit in. Everybody wants to be a part of a tribe. Every next level listener right now listening to this wants to be a part of this community, at least to some extent. Mm. They feel understood here. They feel like they want to be here. They feel like they want to learn here. And so just like Native American tribes, like every single one had their own sort of culture, their own leadership. They had their own belief system. You know, one tribe believed in X, this other tribe believed in Y, and so they fought and they had wars. That's how humans have always been from an evolutionary standpoint. And so when you get judged and criticized, there's a positive way to take that or a negative way. And your original question was basically, what do you do with that judgment? Personally, I use it as motivation. And I actually think that you have to do that. So I remember early in my journey after quitting corporate when I was 26 after my car accident, I got judged a lot for I changed so much in such a short amount of time that all of my old associations were like, who are you? Like, what, you're a bodybuilder now, you're a podcaster now, you're a speaker now, like personal development. I was all about personal development. And that was very new for them to see that version of me. And I stopped partying, right? I got a lot of judgment and a lot of criticism. The way that I overcame that was to actually turn it on itself. And I remember I have 3 names that I won't say out loud of, in my opinion, some of the most opinionated humans I've ever met. And what I used to do is say, okay, Alan, the most closed, basically the amount that you get criticized by arrogant, closed-minded people is actually an indicator that you are successful. It's actually I actually use it as a measurement that I was on the right track. And logically it makes sense, right? If I believe that Kevin shouldn't be a podcaster and that podcasting is dumb, the better of a podcaster he is, the more I dislike Kevin, right? Or disagree with Kevin. So I actually used it as my barometer for success. I found the most closed-minded, arrogant people I could, and I gauged how much they criticized me as me winning, and I let it motivate me. And honestly, the people that I'm thinking of, thank you. Thank you to those people. I know all 3 of their names, and they motivated me more than anyone in this world.
What would happen if they gave you constructive criticism, do you think, instead of going about it the way they did? Would you have listened, do you think?
If I sensed that it was from a place of sincere value, I think you can kind of tell. So Emilia gives me constructive feedback, and I often ask for it, but she always gives it to me too. But I know that she has my best interest at heart. I know that. I can feel it. Instead of like, you believe I should be different than I am. It's almost like her feedback is trying to help me become more of who I am. Whereas the other people's feedback was more of like trying to make me like them. And you can tell the difference if you trust your intuition.
One thing that I know you've been, the last, probably year and a half, it's been kind but true. That's been the thing, has been like, we're going to communicate in a kind manner but truthfully. How did you start that? How do you know how much truth somebody is ready for? I know we have coaches that listen to this show, and people in relationships and people who have interesting dynamics with their families. How do you know how much truth to give somebody, and what have been the guidelines for you to figure that out? Like the really good times versus the things that haven't gone so well.
Great question. And the reason I say great question is because like this is the root of so much challenge in the world. So the way that I gauge it now, I used to do this unconsciously, and I've always been doing this unconsciously. And if you're going to help a 10-year-old, you have to understand who and where the 10-year-old is before you try to challenge them to step up. You have to understand how much weight they can squat, so to speak. And I'm not going to ask Kevin to squat 700 pounds because your legs will break.
Well, for sure.
But I can ask you to squat 310 for 5, and then 320, and then 330. So that's the gauge. It's the perfect amount of, in Stephen Kotler's book, he talks about this. It's called The Art of Impossible. He talks about the skill challenge set point. So for example, if we're in the gym, you and I, and we're with Amy as well, okay? I'm going to challenge Amy to squat, 150. I'm just making up numbers here. And I'm going to challenge Kevin to squat 350. Why? Because that's at the sweet spot of challenging enough to where you'll grow, but not so challenging that you'll hate me,
right,
and not ever want to squat again and get injured, right? And so that's kind of what you always have to do. And if anyone's a parent out there, a mother or a father, you know this, because you have to treat a toddler different than a adolescent, different than a high school kid, different than a college kid. And life is a progression of consistently challenging yourself more and more and more and more. And in the last interview, I asked you if you'd be in the MLB had you had a growth mindset. And I believe you would, personally. Absolutely, brother. MLB would be way harder than the minor leagues.
For sure.
But what's interesting about that, and this is the facet that I think people don't understand, is that you're better, though. So, like, Little League might have been hard for you when you were in Little League. But what if that challenge was actually this challenge versus capability? What if that gap was the same amount as MLB versus capability? So it's an infinite game within finite games that I don't think people fully understand. And game theory is a whole thing that we don't have to get into. But that's my answer, is basically you have to understand what level of truth someone can handle, and you have to be willing to ruffle their feathers at least a little bit. You're not telling them your truth. You're almost giving them a perspective to see their own. And I think that's an important distinction. Like, I'm not going to say, oh, Kev, you should be this way. No. It's like, Kev, this is what I believe from something that you might not see. And if you want to look, here's a blind spot. And I see this blind spot, and I could be wrong. Maybe it's blind spot for me. I don't know. I do this with Emilia all the time. I literally say, I don't know if this is my mirror or yours, honestly. And I'll start the conversation there. And half the time, if not more, it ends up being my mirror, which is hilarious, by the way, because I'm like, I come in thinking like I'm showing her a blind spot, and then it's like, oh, shoot, it was mine that I wasn't seeing. But you have to be willing to rumble with that process, and that's why Brene Brown talks about rumbling, is like you have to be willing to be vulnerable for a minute to look at your weaknesses and your insecurities. And if you want to tell someone the truth, you have to figure out what level of truth they want, but a little beyond it. And you have to be willing to risk them subconsciously resenting you for that.
How do you know whether it's worth the risk?
I don't know if you fully do. Maybe other people do. And this is what I've started doing. I've started telling my clients and you and Emilia, I've started getting permission in advance now. So I was on the phone recently with an NLU team member, and I said, I want to admit something to you. So, speaking in front of 1,000 people, I'm really not scared. I'm not. I can do it right now. Maybe I'll jeff it. Maybe I'll win. Doesn't matter. I'm actually not scared. That's actually within my comfort zone, believe it or not. But I am afraid to offend you right now. And I told her this. I am afraid to be disliked. I am afraid to appear arrogant. And I am afraid to lose your love. And those are like very hard for me to admit. But if I don't admit it, I'm going to pretend that I'm different than I am, and I won't make good decisions. So I get permission of like, okay, do you want me to help you maximize your potential? And they say yes, typically. They've always said yes so far. It's also what they're paying me for. But okay.
Still early. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the biggest issues for our listeners that we've seen is not everybody has people in their corner trying to lift them to the next level. And even the people who are trying to help don't always know how.
That's why Kevin and I created Next Level Group Coaching. It's a 3-month program on teams of 10 with all people committed to achieving their goals. Click the link in the show notes for more information.
And we only take 10 people at a time, so make sure you get in quick.
Second question. Do you believe that I'm the right person to help you maximize your potential? This person said, oh my God, yes, more so than anybody. I said, okay, do I have your permission to tell you what I believe is best for you, even if it might offend you at first? And this person said, yes, please, I want you to be as hard on me as you are on yourself. Okay? That gives me permission to tell more truths that might appear unkind, when in reality, it's the most kind, because this person I'm thinking of right now is going to flourish so much, especially after our last call. And if you're listening right now, like that was a big one.
I like this. I like this. Okay, hold on. I had a great question. Growing up, I was always afraid of the fear of failure. I've learned from you that for a lot of your life, you actually had a fear of success.
For sure.
What does a fear of success look like? Feel like? What is it from your perspective? Who typically has it? And how do you get over it? That's a 3-part. That's an Alan question right there. What's your take on all that?
Yeah, literally. I know, right? Now I understand what they go through. Let's do one at a time.
Yeah.
Okay, first one.
What is a fear of success, actually?
It goes back to wanting to fit in. I believe the people who have a fear of success are the people who on some level understand that they're different. I have a plaque in my room that my mom bought me, and it's of Steve Jobs. It's a wooden plaque, and it's awesome. Which also was so sweet because this means she sees me. Only the ones who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. And it's hard to explain that to someone who doesn't feel that way, doesn't identify with that quote. It's not even a question of whether or not I could. At the same level that he did, too, by the way. We're still using his phones. He has the most successful company on the planet, Apple, the first $1 trillion company, and he's not even, obviously passed away. And so whether or not I will is a different question, but whether or not I could isn't a question. And I think that that's why a fear of success stems from a fear of being different. Because when you're different, you're ostracized. And when you're ostracized, you aren't understood, you aren't necessarily loved, you don't feel safe. And I think that that's where a fear of success comes from, is because when the more and more and more successful I became, the more extraordinary, different I was, the less I felt understood by those I loved most. And when I felt misunderstood, I also had less in common. And when you have less in common, the relationship fades. And that's why when I found Emilia, thank goodness, we aren't afraid to lose each other, because I know that she's just like that. There's, you know what I mean? And honestly, she even says, I understand him. She literally, when I showed her my favorite speech of all time, 2005 Stanford Address, Steve Jobs, she's like, I understand him at such a deep level. Because when you know what you're capable of and you know it, it's almost like you have to choose a little bit. It feels like you have to choose. It feels like you have to choose between love now or your potential. It feels that way. And the truth of the matter is with my ex-girlfriends, and I love them all dearly, genuinely, they were wonderful human beings in their own ways, okay? I knew that I was different than them, but yet I don't know if I wanted to admit that to myself, because then that meant that I can't be with them. Whereas with Emilia, she is like me. And I know that through and through. And so that's where the fear of success comes from. It's a fear of not being loved.
What do you do? So I think you and Emilia are two peas in a pod, which is amazing. What if somebody out there right now, we had somebody in group coaching who messaged me and said, I'm just not doing the things I know I should be doing. And I said, are you afraid to fail? And she said, no, I think it's quite the opposite. I think I'm afraid to succeed. What is something, again, me, tactics. What do people do in that situation? Because all the advice online is what happens if you're afraid of failure. Really?
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm not that afraid of failure.
Right.
Yeah. I think that what does someone do if they are afraid of success? You have to find that out. You have to figure that out. So I didn't know this until that speech when we saw Shauna Pelton. So to provide a little context for the listeners really quickly here, Kevin and I were going to give a speech at Confident Women's Consortium. And we went to the previous one that Shauna Pelton was co-hosting with Joyce, to see what it was like, to be a part of the audience so that we could then provide value. Mm-hmm. And Shauna Pelton brought me up on stage and did a childhood trauma healing. And she brought me back to my 14-year-old self. She had me hold my heart and kind of meditate live in front of the audience. And she was talking about the 5 main fears. One is of judgment, one is of success, one is of failure, and I forget what the other 2 are. But basically, she was trying to figure out which one I'm afraid of in my body, my somatic expression. Somatic expression means like an open body or closed off, right? A turtle shell or a pufferfish. And so when you get excited about something, your body opens up, and it tells you what your subconscious truth is. And so you basically yelled out, ask him about success. Ask him if he's afraid of success. That's when I really learned that my fear is not of failure. It's not of criticism. It's not of judgment. It's fear of success, because I've associated success with losing love from the... Basically, think about it this way. if any part of me wants to stay in love with people who are not like me, that means that I'm going to have to be more like them to some extent, because we all share, like, okay, what's a core value that I don't have that someone else has? Okay, so if there's someone who really, really loves fun, unique experiences, and I really, really, really love mastery and challenge, it's going to be hard for me to be more into challenge and success and work ethic while staying in a close relationship with that other person. And so what I found out, and what you helped me find out, and what Shauna Pelton helped me realize, is that I was fearful of success because I was afraid to lose those I love. And the truth of the matter is, and this is going to be hard for me, here I am, 32 years old. In my opinion, and it's interesting because it's only my opinion, I'm the most successful I've ever been as a man in terms of mastery, impact, and profitability. And almost all of my old relationships are less quality time. I still have unconditional love for them, and I know that if we were to cross paths, I'd still love them, but I'm not like them. That's the difference, is I'm not like them anymore. And so my fear was quote unquote valid, but don't let it hold you back, because I would never have found the love that I have for you or Emilia if I didn't learn how to leave the nest, proverbially, of love. I mean, even something as simple as if I didn't leave my ex-girlfriend, I would never have been with Emilia. If I didn't have the courage to lean into who I am and say, listen, I'm different, and this isn't for me, and probably not for you. Let's go our separate ways. And we're on good terms now. Last time I ran into her, we were good. But it's important to understand that you have to give up to grow up. And I think that that's what I want this episode to focus on. I know the timer went off. I promised everyone I would tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. You have to give up to grow up. You have to. And that might mean giving up quality time with people who don't believe in themselves. That might mean giving up drugs or alcohol. That might mean giving up watching football every Sunday. Like, I don't know what it is. It's different for everybody. But if you want to get to the next level of your life, you're going to have to, at least to some extent, give up the old person's places, things, and ideas. And I promise you, on the other end of that trade-off, you will be proud of yourself for doing it. It's just going to take a little while. Just lonely land is really lonely. I had a lonely 8 months in between my ex and my current soulmate. And that was brutal. But if I didn't go through lonely land, I would not have the love of my life. And I will do that in everything from now on, because settling, I can't settle. I'll end on this. Steve Jobs has a quote, and I recited it in my head this morning because I had a really tough morning. And he says this, and I'm just going to hammer it. He says, we grow up as kids and we're told that the world is the way that it is. And that your life is to live inside the world and try not to get in too much trouble and get a job and start a family and get an education. But life can be a lot broader when you realize that the people, if you look around you, all the things around you were made up by people that are no smarter than you. And I think that you can change it, you can poke it, you can prod it, you can learn it, you can understand it, you can create it. And if you actually believe that, and this is not verbatim anymore, this is me, but like that's what he's trying to tell you. What he's trying to tell you is that you don't have to fit into this world. You don't have to fit in. You can stand out. You can make your own podcast. You can make your own movie. You can make your own photography business. And that's what we believe at NLU. We believe in you. We believe in your own ability to change the world in your own unique way. And if you don't believe that, you'll always fit in. And I do think that on some level, your spiritual self that knows what you're capable of will regret it. And I've been guilty of that too.
That was fire.
Thank you, brother.
That was fire.
Appreciate you.
I think we're done here, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's time.
I at the end of the day, I think I might be the best testimonial you've ever had in terms of helping somebody. So if you're out there right now, whether you're emotionally driven and you're afraid of success, or whether you're emotionally driven and afraid of failure, or if deep inside of you you're afraid of success, I know Alan can help you at a deep, deep level. He's helped me through so many of my problems. He is constantly helping me through my problems. So if you're looking for a coach, and it's not me, it definitely should be Alan. Honestly, it should be Alan first, most likely, because I believe he can help you at a very, very high level. I know I can too, but I trust Alan's judgment with my life genuinely, and I know he will do a great job with anybody out there. So reach out to Alan, reach out to me, you can reach out to Amy, anyone on the team. But I genuinely know that Alan is one of the most heart-driven, service-based people I've ever met, and he's one of the most intelligent old men I have the pleasure of knowing.
I appreciate that very, very
welcome.
much. Seriously.
You're very welcome.
It means the world. And the only thing I'd add to that is if you want to maximize your potential, if you know you're capable of more, somewhere deep down, you're like, I am better than this. I'm your guy. But if you just want to have more fun, like I'm gonna help you maximize your potential. And that doesn't mean we can't have fun. We're gonna have fun. Kevin and I have fun all the time.
We have fun.
We have fun all the time. We laugh all the time. But like if you're sick and tired of being less than you're capable of, I am your guy. And DM myself, DM Kev, DM Amy, this team, this podcast, it's called Next Level You. You. Next Level University. Learn how to become to the next level of you. I love that pun. I'll say that forever. Next Level You. It's not about Kevin and I, it's about you. And one DM, whether it was Tiff or Amy or Brandon, one DM is all it takes to change your trajectory forever.
And growth is fun.
It is.
At the end of the day, growth is fun.
I think so.
I do too.
Not all of it.
This was interesting. This felt like a hyper-conscious episode.
It did. Both of them did.
Even the energy is off a little bit because it's like I'm listening way more than trying to add value. It's interesting. I dig it. Ladies and gentlemen, we love you. We appreciate you. And as always, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you on the next one.
Talk to you soon.